Here's something strange. Warren Buffett made almost all of his wealth after the age of 50. Not in his 20s, not in his 30s, after 50. By the time most people are slowing down and thinking about retirement, Buffett was just getting started on the part of his life that would make him one of the richest humans on earth. That single fact breaks almost everything we assume about getting rich. We assume it's about finding one genius idea, one lucky stock, one perfect year. But Buffett's story tells us something uncomfortable and honestly kind of relieving at the same time. Getting wealthy was never the fast, thrilling story we imagined. It was slow. It was boring. And that's exactly why almost nobody does it. So today, we're not just talking about Warren Buffett the billionaire. We're talking about Warren Buffett, the case study in human psychology. Because the real lessons hiding inside his life have almost nothing to do with picking stocks. And everything to do with how your brain sabotages you around money without you even noticing. Let's start with the most basic idea people get wrong, and it sounds almost too simple to matter. Buffett has one rule that sits underneath everything else he does. Price is what you pay. Value is what you get. Picture two people walking into the same grocery store. One person sees a fancy imported bottle of olive oil for $40 and assumes it must be good because it's expensive. The other person actually reads the label, checks where it's made, checks the ingredients, and realizes a $12 bottle right next to it is actually better quality. Same shelf, same store. Completely different outcome, because one person paid attention to value and the other paid attention to the price tag alone. Now stretch that idea over the stock market, over houses, over cars, over your own career. Most people don't ask, what is this actually worth to me long term? They ask, what does everyone else think this is worth right now? And that single mix-up is responsible for almost every bad financial decision humans make. We buy the stock because it's going up and everyone's talking about it. We buy the house at the peak because we're scared of missing out. We chase what looks exciting instead of asking what is quietly valuable. Buffett flipped this completely. His entire strategy for almost 70 years has been to ignore what's exciting and loud and instead ask a boring question. What is this actually worth, regardless of what people are feeling about it today? Here's a simple way to picture it. Imagine you own a small apartment building. One month, everyone in town suddenly panics about the housing market and stops caring about apartment buildings. Does your building actually produce less rent that month? Does it stop being useful? No, its actual value hasn't changed at all. Only people's feelings about it changed. They ask, what does everyone else think this is worth right now? And that single mix-up is responsible for almost every bad financial decision humans make. We buy the stock because it's going up and everyone's talking about it. We buy the house at the peak because we're scared of missing out. We chase what looks exciting instead of asking what is quietly valuable. Buffett flipped this completely. His entire strategy for almost 70 years has been to ignore what's exciting and loud, and instead ask a boring question. What is this actually worth, regardless of what people are feeling about it today? Here's a simple way to picture it. Imagine you own a small apartment building. One month, everyone in town suddenly panics about the housing market and stops caring about apartment buildings. Does your building actually produce less rent that month? Does it stop being useful? No, its actual value hasn't changed at all. Only people's feelings about it changed. Only shadows melting into darkness. Only that. Buffett built his entire fortune on refusing to confuse those two things. The emotional mood of the market with the actual usefulness of what he owned. This is where his second big idea comes in, and it's the one that quietly runs underneath every dollar he's ever made. Compounding. Most people think compounding just means your money grows over time. True, but that description misses why it actually matters. Compounding means your money earns money, and then that new money also earns money, and then that money earns money too. It's not addition, it's multiplication that keeps multiplying itself. Here's a simple way to feel it instead of just hearing it. Imagine you plant one apple tree. That tree grows and eventually produces apples. But instead of eating all the apples, you plant the seeds from some of them. Now you don't have one tree anymore. You have several. Next season, all of those trees produce apples, and you plant more seeds again. Within a few decades, you're not tending a handful of trees. You have an orchard, a garden anymore. You're standing in an entire orchard, and it happened without you working any harder each year. You just let time and patience do the multiplying. That's the part almost nobody has the patience for. In year one, your orchard looks pathetic. A few small trees, barely any fruit. It feels like nothing is happening. This is exactly why most people quit investing early, quit saving early, or feel like their small amounts of money don't matter. The early years of compounding look almost embarrassingly slow. But the whole system is designed to explode later, not early. Buffett understood this so deeply that he was willing to look boring for decades while other investors chased fast excitement. He wasn't slow because he lacked options. He was slow on purpose. Now here's the deeper psychological truth hiding underneath all of this, and it's the part that actually explains why Buffett's principles work, while most people's financial habits don't. Humans are wired for instant feedback. Our brains reward us for things that feel good right now. A new phone, a vacation, a trendy stock tip from a friend that made them money last month. Our nervous system treats right now as urgent, and years from now as basically imaginary. This is why saving money for retirement feels emotionally weightless compared to spending it on something today. Retirement isn't real to your brain yet. The new pair of shoes is real right now. Buffett's entire advantage was never really about intelligence. Plenty of brilliant people lose money in the market every single year. His advantage was emotional patience in a world addicted to urgency. He treated money decisions the way a farmer treats a harvest, not the way a gambler treats a slot machine. This connects to something called temporal discounting, which is a fancy way of describing something very ordinary. Our brains consistently undervalue the future compared to the present, even when we know logica, that the future matters more. It's the same reason people eat the donut, even though they know they'll regret it in an hour. It's the same reason people swipe the credit card, even though they know the bill is coming. The pain of waiting feels bigger in the moment than the reward of patience, even when patience is mathematically the smarter choice by a landslide. Here's the twist that makes Buffett's story so powerful. He wasn't fighting temptation with willpower every single day. He built a lifestyle where patience was simply the default setting. He lived in the same modest house for decades. He didn't surround himself with reminders of what fast spending looks like. He removed the daily battle by designing an environment where boring, patient decisions were just normal. This matters because most people try to win the money game through willpower alone, gritting their teeth every time they want to spend. Buffett won by designing a life where he barely had to resist anything, because the tempting stuff wasn't constantly in his face to begin with. There's another quiet psychological trap Buffett avoided that most people fall directly into. It's called social comparison, and it might be the single most expensive habit humans have when it comes to money. We don't actually spend based on what we need. We spend based on what the people around us have. A slightly nicer car than the neighbor. A slightly fancier vacation than what shows up on our friend's social media. None of these comparisons are really about the object itself. They're about status, belonging, and the fear of falling behind people we compare ourselves to. Buffett famously never played that game. He wasn't trying to look rich. He was trying to be rich. And those two goals often pull in opposite directions. Looking rich usually means spending in a way that makes wealth disappear. Being rich usually means living in a way that lets wealth accumulate quietly, invisibly, and consistently. Even while looking completely ordinary from the outside. So what does this actually mean for your own life, today, at your income level, whatever that looks like right now? First, separate price from value in your everyday decisions. Before buying something, whether it's a stock, a subscription, or a big purchase, ask yourself a simple question. Am I buying this because it's genuinely useful to me long term, or because it feels exciting and everyone around me seems to want it? That one pause, just a few seconds of honesty, can quietly save you from most of the financial regrets people carry for years. Second, respect the boring beginning of compounding instead of quitting because of it. If you're just starting to save or invest and the numbers look small and unimpressive, that's not a sign you're doing it wrong. That's simply what year one of an orchard looks like. The growth that matters most happens in the later years, and those years only exist if you don't give up during them. Unimpressive early ones. Third, redesign your environment instead of relying purely on willpower. If certain apps, certain stores, or certain social circles constantly tempt you into comparison spending, you don't need more discipline. You need less exposure to the temptation in the first place. Buffett didn't outmuscle his impulses. He avoided giving them daily opportunities to win. Fourth, get honest about who you're actually trying to impress. If a purchase is motivated primarily by what other people will think when they see it, that's usually a signal worth paying attention to. Not because wanting nice things is wrong, but because spending driven by comparison rarely builds anything lasting. It just resets the moment someone else buys something newer. Warren Buffett's story isn't really a story about stock-picking genius, even though that's how it gets told most often. It's a story about a man who understood something most people spend their entire lives fighting against. Patience isn't the opposite of progress. Patience is how real progress actually gets built, quietly, slowly, and almost invisibly, until one day the results are impossible to ignore. The uncomfortable truth is that none of this requires you to be a genius, get lucky, or discover some secret formula. It just requires you to stop asking what looks exciting right now and start asking what will actually be worth something years from now. Everyone technically has access to that choice. Almost nobody actually makes it because it doesn't feel rewarding in the moment it's made. Maybe that's the real Buffett lesson worth remembering. Wealth was never hiding behind some brilliant secret. It was hiding behind decades of decisions so boring, so unremarkable, and so unglamorous that almost everyone walked right past them, still searching for something more exciting to do instead.